The Big Light presents.
I almost think I'm too rational. Like sometimes I need to be irrational because I'm so rational that I can almost rationalize myself out of my feelings and almost like not let myself just feel. PMDD takes me the complete other way and I become the most irrational human that I have ever met.
My name is Helena Rafai and this is the A Sonic Hug podcast. Over the coming episodes, you're going to hear the voices of people from different walks of life who deal, experience and battle mental health issues. I can't believe I'm bringing you the fourth series. If you're new to the podcast, then please do take time to listen to previous episodes if you can. In this, the first episode of the series, I speak with Tomiwa Folarunsho, a Nigerian-Scottish writer, editor and creative producer. In our discussion, Tomiwa opens up about her personal battle with Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder, also known as PMDD. PMDD is a severe and chronic medical condition linked to the menstrual cycle that can cause significant mental health challenges. Tomiwa shares the impact PMDD has had on her life and work and her efforts to raise awareness and reduce stigma around this often misunderstood disorder. It's a raw, honest and ultimately hopeful conversation. There are, however, themes that you may find difficult to listen to. This is Tomiwa's story.
Like my mental health, history, journey is maybe quite an interesting one because what I struggle with or have struggled with for the last, 7 years is not what I originally struggled with. Or to my knowledge, I don't think that's what I was originally struggling with. And so in my kind of up until my early 20s, I had seen a counsellor on and off. I'd been in counselling on and off. I'd been to the doctors about my mental health. It's really hard to know now if it was depression or anxiety or if it was low mood and it couldn't even, necessarily be categorised as one of those two. And it was just like being a teenager as well. I think it's a combination of so many things. A big thing for me, I especially know like looking back at my kind of the time I was in university, but also probably throughout my secondary school, was being a Black woman in white spaces and not really knowing how to navigate that and internalising a lot of that in terms of how I feel about myself and how I probably feel about like my life in the world. I remember this time in my like final year of uni when I was writing my dissertation, which was just the worst experience of my whole entire life. My fourth year flat was round the corner from the library. And so like we would go to the library at 8 o'clock in the morning, be there until like 6, go home for dinner and then go back to the library and be there till like 2 o'clock in the morning and do the same thing every single day. And I remember like this one time, like having left the library and just like listening on my headphones, getting back to my flat, getting into bed and just like crying myself to sleep because I was just like, when am I gonna find peace? When is life not gonna be so much? Why can't I just be like everyone else and just be? Not have so many feelings in a sense. And that time at 21, 22, I felt was like the culmination of like, that part of my life of how my mental health had been. And then I wrote my dissertation. I graduated. I like leave behind this environment and that kind of education environment as well. Even though I was still in very white spaces, I just felt like there was perhaps more control and I could just be myself a bit better with more ease. I think about 6 months after I graduated, I worked at a restaurant as a manager, assistant manager, waitress. And we never really did like super late nights. So I would work like, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. I'm home by 12. It was really good. I was writing. I was working at a charity. It was like, it was like a good time. I was living at home. And I just remember that every month I was just getting so tired in a way that was so unlike me. As in, like, I would wake up at 10, having slept like 8 or 9 hours, be up for a couple of hours, then just fall asleep on the sofa before work, rush to get the bus, be falling asleep in the bus, get to my shift. And then that was just happening every month. And I'd been anemic in my first year of uni. When you know it's not this, but you don't know what it is, and you just know that this isn't right, this isn't how my body functions. And then I remember sitting in the restaurant before my shift started and saying to my manager, just being like, I just don't feel right. I just feel exhausted. I'm really emotional, quite angry. And then there's this place in Edinburgh, there's an area in Edinburgh called The Shore, quite near to my mum's house. And I remember being around that area one afternoon, walking into this like sandwich shop, like deli, to order a sandwich, and standing in front of the counter and just having an anxiety attack, or close to that, or like those symptoms, I should say. And just being like, I don't want anybody to hear what I'm going to order. I don't want to speak to anyone, but I can't leave, because if I leave, then people will know something's wrong, and I'm standing at the front of this queue. And I was like getting hot. And if you know me, I can be quite shy sometimes. Like, that is not a situation where I would expect myself to react like that. And I remember leaving and just being like, what is going on? I don't understand. This feels like me, but this doesn't feel like me. And it's so hard to remember now because it's all kind of blurry, especially like post-COVID. Everything has just melded into one in terms of time. But I must have Googled, and I knew it was related to my period. My periods have been annoyingly regular since my first period at 12 years old. So I just have always been able to track my cycle. I have very heavy periods, and I'd struggled with that a lot as a teenager. So I was just very aware of my body in that sense. And I just knew it was something to do with that. And then I found PMDD, which is Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder, and looked at the symptoms and was like, this feels like me. I think this is me. I think I went to the doctors, and they kind of weren't super helpful with the options they could give me that would work for me. And then I had some really horrible arguments with people close to me, and some really like dark thoughts that I knew weren't me, and that I knew that were triggered in terms of like my mood and my feelings and my emotions. I am a very rational person, I like to think. And I almost think I'm too rational. Like, sometimes I need to be irrational, because I'm so rational that I can almost rationalize myself out of my feelings and almost like not let myself just feel. And we'll just be like, no, you can't feel like this because of this, and this isn't right. And what PMDD takes me the complete other way, and I become the most irrational human that I have ever met. There's no talking me out of that feeling or that mood. If I feel that way, you can't bring it back. And I can't bring it back within myself. And that really scares me. It doesn't feel like a loss of control. It is a loss of control, I suppose. You're fighting with yourself. And so it was those moments that alarmed me. It was those, and then this time I threw a cup at my bedroom wall, which is also so unlike me. Again, I mean, I probably should be because it's good to be angry, but I'm just not a very angry person. I'm super expressive, I think, in my voice, but I'm not super expressive in my body, which also I think comes, again, to go back to being different, being othered, being the other. All throughout my childhood, you just want to fit in. You just want to blend in. So there's so much of me that just wants to, I think, just make life easy. And so I've never been one to have huge outbursts of anger. I would be fine for like a week. Have this week where you're fine. You feel on top of the world. You've got all your energy. You just feel happy, you're good. You want to do everything, make all the plans. And then slowly, it would usually start with either being exhausted or not being able to sleep at all. So it was one of those two things, and having horribly vivid dreams to the point where you wake up almost scared. They're so realistic. It was awful. And so that would kind of start that PMDD period. And then you would get irritable. And then just like very angry, very emotional, very upset, just everything. And just, I would be praying for my period to come. And considering I've had such heavy periods since I was 12 years old, I used to dread my period. Dread it. I was just like, I would plan my whole life around my plans around my period. I can't do this. I can't go swimming. I don't want to do, etc., etc. I don't want to wear this dress. Can't wear my white jeans. And now I'm just praying for my period to come because it just means one step closer to relief. And then finally my period comes. I suppose like maybe depending, like 2-3 days where you can feel yourself getting better and out of this despair almost and getting back on top of your life. And then your period, that continues, my period ends, and then I have my week where it feels great again, and then you sink back in.
As we've been listening to Tomiwa's story, let's take a moment to pause together. These conversations can stir up deep emotions, and it's important that we give ourselves space to process them. Find a comfortable position and take a deep breath in through your nose and slowly exhale through your mouth. Notice how your body feels in this moment. Take time to acknowledge any feelings that have surfaced while listening, whether you're feeling moved, overwhelmed, or simply need a moment to breathe. Let's take 3 breaths together. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4. Remember that it's natural to be affected by these conversations. When you're ready, we'll continue with Tomiwa's story.
What I found really hard was so often it's PMS and PMDD is spoken about as like this, like, you know, these days before your period. It was taking over my month. And in that sense, it's taking over my life because you have this like time where you're doing really well. And like, I'm freelance, I work for myself. Like I'm replying to emails, I'm doing all the things, I'm handing in everything on time. I'm, setting up meetings. I'm doing everything I need to do to make my money, to do my job. And then you just sink and you can't get out of bed and you can't reply to emails and everything's making you feel anxious and you don't want to leave the house. And if you're not exhausted, do you know what I mean? You're awake all night, like, and then as soon as you come out of it, you almost have to do the damage control of everything, of how your life has almost just like slipped out of your control the previous 2 weeks. And so it almost feels you never are able to get on top because you're always repairing the damage. And at the same time, confronted with the feelings of, or trying to navigate the feeling of, I'm doing this to myself. And I'm not doing it to myself, but it feels like you're doing it to yourself. And so for so much of it, I just remember feeling so angry with my body, so angry with my body, because why have you let me down? Why are you putting me through this? And why isn't everything I've gone through already enough? I've already grown up and had times where I have wished I didn't look like this, that I didn't have my skin, that I didn't have my features, that I didn't have my hair. And I've come out of that and I can really look in the mirror and be like, she's beautiful and I love her. And now you're sabotaging me again from the inside and I can't do my life how I know it can be done. Why? In that present moment, you may think, and I think this just always happens with when it comes to your mental health, you think you're doing better. And then 6 months later, or a year later, or 2 years later, you'll look back, and you'll be like, who was she? She was not better. This is me better. And I feel really lucky to have also had that journey, to be able, in a sense, to look back. It's not at all been easy. I think for the most part, it's moved in the direction I'm grateful it's moved in. I first went to see a doctor probably within months in my early 20s of figuring out this is what it is. The doctor offered me options which were like contraception, a lot of which I couldn't take because I had high blood pressure and heavy periods, and fluoxetine, which is Prozac, an antidepressant. They offered me those two options. I went to the doctors on my own. I said no, I left. A few more months went by. I had some really difficult conversations with my mum. I can't remember if I went back with my mum or if I went alone. But anyway, I went and I got fluoxetine Prozac because I wasn't able to have the other options, which were like hormonal contraceptives like the pill, the coil, the Mirena coil, which I'd had before. I didn't want that again. It's long. So I took the fluoxetine. I remember I took it for 10 days and then I was like, no, absolutely not. This is just not working with my body. Like, I could feel it in a way that I didn't like. And I thought, nah. And so then I kind of moved away from like going to see a doctor, and I just did some research, a lot of research, and took a kind of more holistic approach, which in my sense was trying to manage it with different vitamins, like generally taking care of my mental health, my mental well-being, and seeing a counsellor. I will say for most of this time, I was always seeing a counsellor as well. So that was helping. But I do think there's only so much that they can do. And so, yeah, I was taking different vitamins, exercising. I did a lot to do with my diet as well, like cycle syncing. And I will say as well, those things for me did work. But again, if you fall off the wagon at any point, it can just bring the whole thing down again. And I just felt I could still, if I lost it, I lost it. And then I was giving myself such a hard time as well. You should have done this today, Tomiwa, because it would make you feel better. And it's just this constant cycle, just stuck in own head, and my head just gets very negative. I'm very hateful. I'm very hurtful towards myself. And I think another thing about PMDD and a lot of other mental illnesses is that when you're going through any experience that isn't great, it's heightened. The experience is like worse, and then the PMDD is worse almost. I was kind of like getting through it. And then there was some months that would be really bad, but I was just kind of pushing through because I also didn't know what else to do, and I felt like I had no other option. And I also felt that compared to where it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it was better. And it was, but it wasn't as good as it could be. And also I'm kind of stubborn, and I just thought, I'm going to get through this. As in, I'll be able to see it through, medicating myself or treating myself or taking care of myself. I'll be able to see it through. And then in October last year, about 6 years since I'd first started having symptoms, I just completely broke down to my mum. And it was a culmination of other things going on in my life that made it really heightened. I just hadn't felt so much just despair. We had a conversation. I think it was the first time that I really recognised I don't need to live like this, that I don't have to push through, and that I have lived the majority of my 20s not being well. There was a part of me that almost feels, not even consciously, that almost like subconsciously feels I don't deserve to be well. And I had a conversation with my mum that forced me to confront that and forced me to really look at my life, not just my mental health, like all aspects of my life, and think, I deserve better. You know that thing your therapist always says, would you treat your friend like this? You know, you wouldn't speak to your friend how you speak to yourself. And it's so like, ugh, but it's also so true. I wouldn't let a friend struggle through the way I have let myself struggle through. And I think I said some things that scared me, that scared her, or worried her, I should say, that I just thought, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't have the energy to do this anymore. And so I went to the doctors, and I saw a really good doctor who basically let me cry and was like, you don't need to deal with this. Like, there's a way. And I was just like, give me the fluoxetine, please. And it was really rocky at the start because it's hard taking on any medication. And I really had to take away that part of my brain that didn't want to be on any medication for a number of like personal reasons. I had to kind of silence that to be like, this is what I need to do if I want to get to a point where I'm not on medication. Because right now I just have no control and I'm spiraling. And also just, I'm so lucky to have these options and a choice and people to support me and like be there for me and like hold my hand through this like difficult time. Can't keep being a martyr for it, in a sense. I did not realise this, but I've been told by people close to me that have known me since I was like, you know, from like 12 years old to when I was a teenager to now, that I have really strong boundaries. And I think, I mean, not to show off, but I've been creating boundaries not before everybody else was creating boundaries. I was not the first person to create a boundary in my life, but before it became a thing that we talk about so much, it's very much who I am. I have never felt pushback in creating those boundaries because I think there's so much of my personality, and the people who like respect those boundaries are the ones that get in, and then we're all just, for the most part, friends forever. So with the people that I care about and that care about me, they understand that fluidity in the same way that I understand that fluidity of them. But in saying that, I have been trying to create new boundaries of just like focusing on myself more, I suppose, doing things that are right for me, not always, just being a bit, because my life has changed as well. And that, have I received pushback? No, I don't think so. I hate to say it's an age thing because I know I'm so young, but I can also look back at my early 20s and just see a difference in myself of just caring less, of really just like, I am going to take care of myself. That is the most important thing. That does not mean I don't care about other people. Of course not. But I need to do what is right for me and take the most care of myself. It also looks like talking to my friends more and being more honest with my friends, and in turn being more honest with myself. And I think that's again where I'm super, super lucky. I do not take it for granted. And I think it's part of the generation I'm in, but also I just have some like fucking amazing people in my life. And that's like my mum and my brothers included, of just being able to say, I don't feel great today. And there being no judgment and just understanding. But I think there's also something in people around you who know you being able to pull you to help get yourself out of a space. And there's like an example. I was with two of my closest friends a couple of weeks ago, and we've been friends for like 17 years. It's ridiculous. One of them said something that triggered me. When I get triggered a lot of the time, I just like close off. And I was like, I'm just going to go home. And then my other friend looked at me and she said, are you sure? Maybe don't go home. Why don't we just all go outside for a minute? And the three of us just went outside and just got some air and spoke about that moment and then got over it. If they had let me leave in that moment, that might not have actually been the best thing. I really value having people that will almost like rise with you, in a sense, or like kind of fight back against your feelings and know when to fight back and when not to. For PMDD specifically, there needs to be more research, more funding, more options. I think putting those who suffer in a place where you can only have hormonal contraception or an antidepressant is so unfair. And when we think about the amount of research into women's health, it's just not good enough. It's so frustrating. There's so many ways to approach cycles and like periods and hormones that isn't just investigated, and really holistic ways as well. And so it's just giving people options. I think that is what I would want to see change. I would want something that is specifically for PMDD rather than something that was created for something else and a byproduct is maybe helping my PMDD. But I also, and then this would apply to PMDD, but I also just think mental health and mental illness more widely is just make it easier for holistic approaches. I'm not saying medicine doesn't have a place, but in the same way medicine has a place, like the vitamins you're taking have a place, and people being able to like afford to pay their rent or their mortgage has a place, you know, like it's everything. So much of life is just geared up to like work, burn out. Of course nobody's well. Of course everybody's tired. And so just like a more holistic well-being approach to our bodies, to our lives, I just think would change the game.
Tomiwa's story is a powerful testament to the complex struggles faced by so many women, particularly Black women who battle with PMDD and mental health in a society that often fails to understand or support them. The feelings of anxiety, depression, and the constant questioning of when they would end are a powerful reality that no one should ever have to endure. Her journey to finding answers, from Googling symptoms to the realisation that it might be PMDD, highlight a desperate need for more awareness and resources around this debilitating condition. The long and often unhelpful process of seeking treatment is a stark reminder of how far we still have to go in providing adequate support for those who suffer. It's heartbreaking to hear how PMDD turned her into a completely irrational version of herself, causing her to fight against her own mind and body. The anger and despair she felt, especially as someone whose character is naturally placid, is testament to the sheer power of how this condition wreaked havoc on every aspect of her life. Her struggle with body image and identity, learning to love herself as a black woman only to be betrayed by her own body, is something I found particularly poignant. But that cycle of brief respite, followed by the inevitable descent back into symptoms, is a relentless battle that no one should have to fight month after month. Her realisation that PMDD was taking over her entire life, not just the days before her period. This is a crucial one, and I don't think a lot of people would quite understand the thick layer of stress that only compounds the already heavy burden she was carrying. I guess that's why we need to maybe always pause and think about why someone is perhaps behaving in a way that feels challenging or out of character. No matter the setting, her journey to recovery, from the initial resistance to medication to the eventual decision to seek help, is a compelling reminder that healing is not a linear process. The fact that she can look back now and recognise how far she has come is one of the most potent points for me in this story. It's devastating to hear that she's had to live most of her 20s not being well and the subconscious belief that she didn't deserve to be well. I want listeners to pause and think how challenging that length of time is. Tomiwa deserves nothing less than a life free from the grip of that experience, but also a society that supports her every step of the way. Her story is a call to action for more research, more funding, and more holistic approaches. As she says, to treating PMDD and supporting those who suffer from it, it's a reminder that we need to do better as individuals and as a society in creating safe spaces for women to share their struggles and receive the care that they need and deserve. We still have a very long way to go in this. I know Tomiwa, and she's a force of nature in creative circles and beyond. I guess it's her openness and vulnerability that perhaps is most powerful. Tomiwa, yes, you are a beautiful woman, and I hope you continue to know that you are fully deserving of a joyful and formidable life ahead. If you have experienced or are experiencing anything described in this episode, then you will find support information in the notes to accompany this podcast. A Sonic Hug podcast is recorded, edited, and produced by me, Helena Rafai. Until next time, deep breaths.
From the Big Light Studio.